I thought I was going to die. He could see my breast. When was your last coitus? I want to share a little story time about the time I ended up in the emergency room for the very first time in my life while on a date. Oh my gosh, this was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I wish I was being dramatic, so hold on tight, grab a drink, and just settle into the story that I'm about to tell you. That may or may not blow your mind just because of the incident surrounding it. I ended up in the ER on the weekend and have never been to an emergency room before, not even in America. So to have happened in a foreign country was so scary. And because of the symptoms I was dealing with at the moment, I thought I was going to die. And I was on a date when it happened. I still don't have words for it because it was just so unexpected. Fortunately, it ended on a good note. But in the heat of the moment, wow. It was scary. It was bizarre and it was amazing because of what I experienced during this incident. Let's get into the story. Let's just get into the story. You can tell from the title. You've seen the title. Yes, I ended up in the ER after being on a date. Before I start, if you watched my last Tinder video, you probably got the idea that I was done with Tinder. And honestly, I thought I was done as well because Tinder was trash in my experience. And just what most people talk about online, but we have those rare cases of people who meet their partners on Tinder. So I gave up on Tinder. And in December of last year, I downloaded Bumble. I haven't had much luck there either. So in March, I was talking to my friend. We were talking about dating. I was like, just download Tinder, just have fun with it. I was telling her that because she'd never gone on any date before or never been in a relationship. I've never been in a relationship either, but I've been on a few dates, I guess. So I was like, just do it just to practice. I was like, you know what? I'm going to download it too. I was like, I'm bored. I just want to do it for fun. I'm not expecting anything serious out of it. That was in March. 2 weeks after creating the account, I've matched with countless number of people who were not serious. And I matched with this person that I ended up going on a date with this Saturday. We matched after 2 weeks of me being on the app, and I just knew he was different from the get-go because within minutes of me getting a notification that I matched with him, he sent messages right along. And that's so different from every other person I've matched with because I have this principle with Tinder that if I'm the second person and the page pops up, where it says it's a match, send your match a message, I pick it upon myself to send the first message. And oftentimes when people match with me as the second person, they don't have the same principle to want to send the first message. So oftentimes the burden of sending the first message, regardless of who matches second, always falls on me. At this point, I was already getting tired. I wasn't taking it personally because I knew what I was signing up for, but I was bored again, and I just didn't bother with these matches that were just there in the chat. But he took it upon himself to send the message, which was what I expected and what I wanted. We just started talking. The conversation would just flowed freely and comfortably. We'd been talking for over 2 weeks now by the time the date occurred. And then the date happened on Saturday. Before we go, let's start on Friday. On Friday, I was not feeling great. I decided to take a sick day. I went to an ENT clinic because I've been dealing with my seasonal allergies. I wanted to see if there was a way to get tested and find out exactly what my body's reacting to. They drew my blood and they said the result will be out on Tuesday. After leaving, they gave me a prescription for some medications to get. I went to the pharmacy, I got those. I had to use them with meals. So it was for 5 days, morning, night. So by the time I got the medication, it was already afternoon time. So that means I couldn't use it for morning that day. And I didn't want to use it at night. So I just decided I'll start using it on Saturday. I promise this will relate to the story I plan on telling because that was where I first suspected something went wrong. Saturday morning came. I had plans to go to Seoul for rugby practice. And then later in the evening, I had a date that I was supposed to go to. I rarely eat breakfast. I mostly eat breakfast on Sunday mornings. Other mornings, I'll just grab a fruit or something if I have it. And sometimes I'll have oatmeal. I don't have a regular breakfast schedule. I knew I had to take it with a meal. So I just threw a few grapes in my mouth and then swallowed the medicine. And almost instantaneously, I started feeling stomach pain. And I was like, this is not right. But it wasn't too bad, so I was like, oh, I'm okay. So on my way out of the house, I grabbed 2 bananas for after my rugby practice. That was the plan. because I thought I wouldn't want to eat it before running and then feel like constipated, because that's what happens if I eat right before exercising. I get like cramps. So I got to the field. The pain was becoming more noticeable, so I decided to eat the banana. And again, it was so weird. Almost instantaneously, the pain went down. So I thought, oh, maybe it's because I didn't have food in my stomach when I used that medicine. That was why. I arrived early to the field, so I decided to just take laps around while waiting for the rest of my team to arrive. The pain kept coming in like waves, but like if the highest of my pain tolerance is like 10, it was like it never went past 3, between 1 and 3, and it just stayed that way in waves, really. Practice was between 12 and 2. I was able to go through practice without stopping for anything. And then I went to a friend's house to get changed, and I started feeling a little pain there, so I was like, oh, I think it's because I'm hungry. Well, it's getting close to my date, so I just got dressed and we met and went to a coffee shop. We had drinks, getting to know each other. All throughout this time, I had no pain in my stomach. If there was any, maybe 1 or 2 that it didn't even affect me in the conversation we were having. We were there for like an hour or like maybe 45 minutes. Then we decided to head out to dinner. I'm looking forward to this dinner because I'm going to be having jjajangmyeon for the second time in my life. Been in Korea for like over 2 years now, still have not been able to eat jjajangmyeon. A friend recommended this Chinese vegan restaurant to me, and I was so excited. Like, very excited for this moment to happen. Yes, I'm on a date, but I'm about to eat jjajangmyeon, okay? So we arrived, we ordered, we sat down to eat, and that's when the pain started. It was like about 4. I'm ignoring it, I'm eating. 5. And it just never stopped climbing at that point. My face is changing, my demeanor is changing, and the man of the hour is noticing all of this. He's asking questions. Are you okay? I said, well, I'm not okay, but don't worry, just keep eating. But I could tell he was so reluctant to eat, and I felt so bad because I'm not gonna stop him from eating because we just paid for this food and I don't want the food to go to waste. So I was hoping I would be able to tolerate the pain until he finishes his food, and then we can decide what to do next. Then he asked me if I wanted to go home to my friend's place. I was like, no, not really. I wanted to spend time with him. I came here to meet this person and I want to spend time with him. So I thought, nah, I think he'll go away soon. The pain didn't go away. And it got to the point where tears started coming out of my eyes uncontrollably. He looked at me and he said, we need to go to the hospital. I could not say no at that point because the pain was just unbearable. So we got outside, our food was unfinished, and we couldn't really get it to go. Nor was that even relevant at that moment. So we just walked out, we hailed a taxi, we went to the university hospital nearby. We got there and we had to stay outside the door for close to an hour because there were people before me. And I always assume emergency room just meant expedited like service. I don't know. That's what I always assume, but I guess you can just fly through people. I felt like dying. I can't describe this pain. It was in the lower region of my stomach, and I couldn't bend down to like support myself, because usually if you have stomach pain, well, when I have stomach pain, this is something I do to like comfort myself. Just had to be in this same position. I got a wheelchair, so I was sitting in a wheelchair. Just that hour felt so long. After about an hour waiting outside, we were allowed into the waiting area. Close to an hour of waiting there as well. And all he could do, he was sitting across from me in the waiting area, and he would just like occasionally like pet my leg to say, it's okay, you're okay. He would say, I'm gonna be fine. I'm just like, well, I hope so. I really hope so. I don't want to die. After almost an hour, we got called into like a questionnaire area, if you want to call it that. And they were asking questions like, I guess my name and like symptoms. I was not in the mood to talk. I could not talk at this point. So man of the hour basically answered questions for me. Because I already told him my symptoms. He already knew, and he's already observed for being with me for however how long we've been together for the evening now. So he was just answering for me. And then after we got questioned, then we were taken into like the main area of the hospital. Finally, now I'm in a bed. It felt so good to be in a hospital. We got into the room. The first doctor came over to ask for my symptoms, looked at me to ask me in Korean if I spoke Korean. And I shook my head no, and the man of the hour also answered no. So the doctor turned around to my friend and started talking to my friend. My date, this is not my friend, is practically a stranger. Started talking to him. And he translated to me. Can you believe this? After he translated, the doctor then turned around to me and spoke to me in English. And I was like, so what was the point of that if you could actually speak in English? But yeah, a few of the doctors actually did that throughout the night. They come in, they ask if I speak Korean. I say no. They talk to the man of the hour. He translates. Then they turn to me and they like summarize a few sentences to me in English. And I'm like, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? So upon arrival, I was given IV drip. So that was in my arm like right away. And then they gave me a cup to go pee. I had that done. I went to go pee. They got some tests done on it. And then based on what they saw, then they were able to give me strong pain relief through my IV drip. Got my blood drawn to go get some tests done. Based on my symptoms and based on what the doctor was observing, he suspected appendicitis. After listing my symptoms, the doctor was like, I'm not sure yet, but we will have to take some more tests. So I had CT scan, x-ray, and then came back and told me that they saw a ruptured cyst. As a result, they need to do further testing just to confirm. So they called doctors in the OBGYN department to come take further tests. So with those people, I had ultrasonography done. Very uncomfortable test. Google the test and you'll know what it is. Before all of this though, it's been established that man of the hour is a friend of mine. He's not leaving. I'm in bed and he's in a chair by my bedside. The nurse came over. I'm in a hospital gown. I have no bra on. I'm wearing my own pants. And when the nurse came in, they wanted to get some tests done, and I'm not really sure what they test for with those. They're like suction cups, but they're metal. While he's sitting looking at me, looking at her, she raised my blouse up as I was laying down, and from where I'm laying down, I felt that he could see my breast as she raised my blouse to put the suction cup onto my chest and stomach. And I was just so baffled why she didn't ask him for privacy. I was just very shocked. He was so shocked as well, but he immediately turned his back to what was happening because he didn't know that was supposed to happen. So that was one of the moments of TMI that happened there. But obviously everything else that happened there was just a little TMI because he got to learn about my medical diagnosis and all the symptoms and all the other questions that the doctors were asking me. Questions like, when was your last coitus? Have you ever been pregnant before? Are you currently pregnant? When was your last period? What do you use for your period? Pad, cup, and how often do you change those things during the day? I had to respond to these questions, but it's just he was there just listening to all of this. And even when I was trying to explain some things to him and the doctors were, acting like they didn't speak English, he had to Google things I told him and then translate them and then try and tell them what my symptoms were. So later, when I was feeling better, it's I learned a lot. I had to Google so many things. So that was funny, but also wow, very, very TMI, if I could say so. We were there for a total of 6 hours. So are you listening to this? This was a stranger that I met that night. Yes, I've been talking to him for a little over 2 weeks. It was my first in-person meeting with him. He ended up going to the hospital with me. He walked into the hospital, talked to the doctors on my behalf, explained my symptoms to them. And then while I was settled, I was oh, it's okay, you can leave, you can go home. He's no, I wouldn't feel okay to leave you here by yourself. So the whole night, I kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And alternating with, thank you so much, thanks a lot, I'm sorry. And it's there's nothing to apologize for. You didn't do anything wrong. I was just so uncomfortable. I felt like I was burdening this person. Even if this was my friend that I knew, I would do the same. Let alone a stranger who literally had no responsibility of being there. Honestly, if he had just dropped me off in front of the hospital door, it would still not be considered a bad person in my book because that was all he needed to do. So he just sat there for 6 hours by my bedside. And I don't even know how else to thank such a person because who does that? Who? I don't know if I would do that. I don't know. So it really, really took me by surprise. After the ultrasonography was done, I needed to take a second blood test. I've been at the hospital at this point for 5 hours. So they said they would take the second test and I needed to wait for an hour for the test to be read and whatnot. They would compare the result of the second blood test to the first one. If things are looking similar, I would be good to go after an hour. If not, then I would have to be admitted to the hospital overnight. When the hour came, they told me I would be fine to leave tonight. They gave further instructions. I wasn't allowed to exercise for the next 5 days because they suspect that maybe one of the reasons was because I was being too active. Basically, what they saw from the scan was that there's a benign cyst that ruptured and it's bleeding. However, it wasn't serious enough for them to say surgery right away, so they didn't recommend that. However, I will need to go back for a check-in a week from Saturday. They will do the same procedures to look at the size of the cyst. If it stays the same, then I will be okay. I will be told to keep on going with what I'm doing. If things are gotten worse, then a surgery would be required at that point to treat what happened. So yeah, that's what I was told. I was given medication to use before breakfast, another one after breakfast, one after lunch, one before dinner, and then one after dinner, in addition to my prescription from the ENT. It's a lot of medication. So after I was released, there's no we here. I was the only patient in the hospital. We went to the window to pay my bills. The total came out to be 238,090 Korean won. This is after like my insurance have been deducted. And honestly, this is the most expensive fee I've ever paid at the hospital, because even when I got my tonsillectomy done, it was like a little over 200 that I paid there. Yes, it was a lot of money that I wasn't expecting to pay, but it was affordable. I was able to pay out of pocket. And then we went to the pharmacy to pick up my medication, but I didn't have to pay for the pharmacy because it was already billed with a fee. We walked out of the hospital and it was exactly midnight. And it was so hard trying to get a taxi out of that neighborhood that night. But honestly, we don't need to get into the details of that because it's so irrelevant at this moment. I just wanted to say, one of the scariest moments of my life happened to me during one of the exciting moments. Because, like when you go on dates, you're like excited because you're about to go have fun. You're about to go meet someone new that could possibly be something more. And it was just crazy that happened. Like, yes, they said my cyst ruptured due to like me being too active. But Saturday before that, I was also playing rugby. I was being equally active. It could have happened then. It didn't. 2 weeks before that, it could have happened then. It didn't. It just had to be that day. And it just blew my mind that I just happened to encounter one of the nicest people in the whole world who decided to sit there next to a stranger and just took on the responsibilities on his shoulders that he didn't have to do. I almost wanted to label this video like my date from hell, but I didn't want to be misleading for people to think maybe it was because of my experience with the person I went on a date with, because it had nothing to do with him, but more so my experience and what was happening to me. But yeah, it was crazy. We got to hang out for like maybe 2 hours, and the rest of it I was in pain in the hospital praying I don't die. But we were together for a very long time while he's just watching me in a hospital bed, consoling me and speaking on my behalf because he was there acting as my interpreter. It was wild, and I'm just glad and grateful to God that I'm alive. I'm alive. And we're still talking, and I'm just gonna end this video because otherwise I'm gonna keep giggling, cheesing, and ain't nobody got time for that. But I hope I have something exciting to say in the future after this, because this is the highlight of my year. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Annyeong. Annyeong.